Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be talking about the threat of severe weather across a large chunk of the United States both tomorrow and Saturday. I'll give you the latest breakdown and everything that you need to know in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today. We're first going to begin with the Gulf Coast, and that is where a very defined low pressure system is located. This is an upper level low that almost looks like a subtropical or tropical storm. It is now moving inland, and this actually brought upwards of 25 inches of rain to Fort Lauderdale yesterday. Unbelievable stuff there, and this has also brought a few tornadoes to areas like Georgia and as well as Florida. Luckily, this will start to weaken over the next several days, but we have reasons to be thankful for this because our next system that is currently developing back over in the Rocky Mountains and Central Plains, that is going to be our next severe weather event for both Friday and Saturday, and this upper level low is going to help to weaken the overall threat of severe weather, but it's not zero. We are still watching for the threat of some numerous damaging winds, large hail, and maybe even a few tornadoes over the next 72 hours. So in terms of the jet stream, you may notice back over here in the southeast, that is where we actually have an omega block setup, by the way, an upper level low located back down the southeast, and this is what's going to help to actually weaken the jet stream on the eastern side, which will help to overall limit the threat of severe weather, at least for Friday. Now this jet stream, it does have a little bit of a wrinkle in here over the Central Plains on Friday, but once we go into Saturday, it starts to re-strengthen, which means the chance for severe weather will likely increase as storms do end up developing back through areas in the Mississippi Valley, the Midwest, and back through the Ohio Valley as we go into Saturday and Sunday. And eventually this low pressure system will be negatively tilted, which means it'll be able to pull a ton of moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico both Saturday and Sunday to increase the overall threat of severe weather. So what does this look like on the future radar? So over the next 24 to 48 hours, we are watching for the chance of some showers and storms back down in the southeast, but once we go into Friday and Saturday, that is when some severe storms may start to bubble up in the central and southern plains. More details on this here in just a moment. And then back through the Mississippi Valley and Midwest, that is also where we could see some severe weather, and eventually going into Sunday, that risk of severe weather will shift over towards areas in the northeast. One thing to notice, by the way, this low pressure system is going to be fairly strong, 995 millibars, not the strongest low pressure system we've ever seen, but it is definitely very impressive with this sort of setup. Now let's talk about the severe weather threat over the next few days, beginning with Friday. That is when we have a slight risk of severe weather that extends from Nebraska back through northern Oklahoma. Now this was originally much larger. You might remember from yesterday's forecast, it went all the way back through North Texas. They have shrunk the region mainly due to the fact a strong cap will be in place further to the south of where that low pressure system is located, which overall will limit the threat for severe weather, which is fantastic news. Also, you might notice back over here in the Carolinas, there is a marginal threat of severe weather tomorrow. That's primarily during the morning, maybe early afternoon hours for an isolated tornado or two. I wouldn't expect anything too crazy though over that direction. Then once we go into Saturday, things start to ramp up a bit. I think the best chance for severe weather will be Saturday. That is when we have the chance for severe storms capable of damaging winds upwards of 60 to 75 miles per hour. Large hail upwards of even tennis ball size is going to be possible with some of the storms that we see, and as well as maybe a few tornadoes embedded in this line. Nothing in comparison to what we've seen with the last two severe weather outbreaks, but still very notable. We have a very large area here for severe weather. I would not be shocked if an enhanced risk of severe weather would actually end up occurring there for Saturday, but overall the threat of severe weather not nearly as high as the last few events that we've had. Now in terms of the moisture with this event, we'll have the chance for severe weather in the central and southern plains tomorrow night and as well as into Saturday morning. That is when moisture will really start to kick in there. Dew points in the low 60s. That's plenty of buoyancy for some severe weather. And then once we go into Saturday, much better environment will be in place. So that threat of severe weather naturally will be increased across areas from the Midwest back through the lower Mississippi Valley. Highest dew points will range in this region here. So basically from central and southern Illinois back through northern Louisiana. That's probably going to be the best shot for some severe storms. And then going into Sunday, we could still see some severe weather, but overall the amount of buoyancy with this event will not be nearly as high. We'll have a chance for some severe weather, but it will probably be on the lower scale scale of things, dew points will be lucky to get above 60, which again means that the buoyancy amount will just not be that high. And instability is also a critical feature for severe weather. This is essentially what happens with daylight heating. We have building instability. For Friday night, there will be plenty of it. The problem will be, will storms actually form back down in the southern and central plains? Probably not. So in that case, the instability is pretty much useless since there will be a pretty strong cap in place. But once we go through Saturday night, there will be some instability in the Midwest, but nothing that's that impressive. We're talking about values less than 500 joules per kilogram, which typically for more significant severe weather, we need about 1500 or higher. And we really don't even have that available across any of this region. So overall, there's some good news there, but we are still watching for at least some scattered severe storms. And then going through Sunday, instability values, again, very low overall. We're not going to be watching for a severe weather outbreak, probably, maybe a small scale outbreak, but it's nothing that's going to be large scale in comparison to what we've seen recently. Now, I love to share good news with you, and we have some good news. The tornado risk will not be that high with this event. In fact, it'll be quite low. The low-level jet, even on Friday night, is going to be fairly weak. We're talking about 30 miles per hour or less, which again is a weak low-level jet. That means the rotation in the lower levels of a supercell will not be strong, which again means really good news. Once we go into Saturday night, it does increase a little bit across areas in the Midwest and the lower Mississippi Valley, upwards of 30 to 35 knots, which we might see a couple of tornadoes, but I'm not overly concerned about the tornado risk with this event, which again, great news. Once we go into Sunday, it does strengthen a bit, but severe weather is not really expected across the area where the low-level jet is the strongest, which again would mean that we're really not looking at much of a tornado risk out of this event. But we still have to monitor the damaging wind and large hail potential. Those are definitely the main threats with this system. Now, once we go through the timing across the central plains, a few storms could fire up as we go into late Friday night. This will probably be between 5 to 9 o'clock is when those initial cells will start to really develop and explode across northern Kansas and southern Nebraska. Now, if the cap breaks, which again, this is a very uncertain region down here, but if the cap is able to break, we might see a couple of cells maybe pop up across areas like North Texas or even down into southern Kansas or even into Oklahoma. But again, the threat of that is quite low at this time. And then once we go through the evening hours, this might become a bit more of an outflow driven complex of storms. So gusty winds and maybe some small hail will be the main concern as those storms rumble through Iowa. Now let's talk about the threat for Saturday. Again, slight risk of severe weather from southern Illinois back through Louisiana. In terms of the tornado threat, I mentioned this before, but really not much of any tornado risk. The tornado parameters peak at like 1 to 2, which that would typically indicate a low end threat for tornadoes. So again, I'm not too concerned about the tornado risk. In terms of the timing here across the lower Mississippi Valley and as well as back through the Midwest, we'll have some storms fire up during the late afternoon and evening hours back through Missouri and Arkansas. That is where the most significant severe weather will lie, and that line of storms will push off to the east with really not a whole lot of severe weather left as it moves into Illinois and as well as western Kentucky. So again, the main threat will be during the afternoon, not really overnight. So that's some good news there. And also one other thing I want to mention, there is a chance for a small scale snow event across areas in the Midwest as we go into late Sunday into Monday. Might see a couple of inches of snow. And again, we're in mid-April, so it's kind of crazy there. Back through areas in Wisconsin and maybe the upper Michigan Peninsula. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like the video and subscribe down below.